Okay. Alright, do I look good? Chat, does everything look right? This is a little strange. I don't remember it being at this angle last time around. Chat, does this look good? Is everything working right? Or is everything good? What's that echo? Is anyone else hearing that echo, or is it just me? I'm pretty sure. Let's just try to see if I can change it this way. Nope, never mind. That doesn't look centered. Just it's kind of small. It just looks. Yeah, I mean this. I guess the live has to look like this for some reason. That's kind of strange. Whenever I try to turn it the other way, it gets locked. It's kind of strange. I mean, I saw the chat box just now. Yeah, I see the chat. I see it chatting there, Barrel House. All right. I think I'm fine. I think I'm fine. Just the orientation looks a little weird. When I try to turn it like this, it locks my screen, which is stupid. But hey, thanks, YouTube. Nah, I love you, YouTube. But anyways, so Dominaria Remastered set review happening here today. I am going to be talking about the commons of this set, and they may not all be great, but I swear I hear an echo. I'm sorry, but I swear I hear an echo. Is that just me? Okay, whatever. I'm just gonna move along. So, Dominaria Remastered set review. I'm just doing the commons, and then it's just gonna be Give me a sec. The camera's being a little bit annoying here. Alright. I just got a chat here in the... Does this look good now? Does this look good now, chat? Or is the camera angle still off? Alright, you know what? I'm just gonna keep going. If there's something wrong going on, then just chat. Because I can see the chat right now. But anyways, Dominaria Remastered. Set review. Commons. Let's get into it. So, Dominaria Remastered, I've talked about before on the channel. Super awesome looking set. Cannot wait to get my hands on it. And yeah, the commons I'm going to be covering today, they may not all be great, but there are definitely some really good playable commons. Sometimes good cards for Popper, usually. It's usually going to be good cards for Popper. But there will be some pretty good cards for Modern, and hey, maybe even Legacy and Commander. Who knows? Who knows? Okay, I'm just going to move along. I swear I hear an echo, but I'm just going to move along, and hopefully it'll fix itself. So, first card that I'm going to be covering here today is... God, that is blurry. Aquamobia. So for 1 a blue, this is a 1/3 elemental beast that allows, well, it says that I can discard a card and then the power and toughness switch. So basically, 2 mana, 1/3. If you discard a card, it becomes a 3/1 until the end of turn. Not that big of a deal. It's not great, but who knows? Maybe you can find a way to make it good. But anyways, next card. This one's quite a bit better. It's called Auramancer. For 2 and a white, it's a 2/2 human wizard that says when it enters the battlefield, you can return an enchantment card from your graveyard directly into your hand, which is pretty solid, not gonna lie. I mean, that's not bad. It allows you to get enchantments back from your graveyard into your hand. So, I mean, it's not a great card, but it can definitely be played in some commander decks. And the next card, I think, is a really good card in some kind of draft game. But Avarax, for 3 and double red, it's a 3/3 with haste, beast with haste, that says when it enters the battlefield, you can search your library for another card named Avarax, put it into your hand, and shuffle. But the thing is, for 1 and a red, you can activate its ability, which says Avarax gets +1/+0 until the end of the turn. And you may not think that's very good at first, but the thing is, it doesn't say just that one Avarax. It means all the Avaraxes. So, all your Avaraxes get pumped, and they all have haste, so you can do this the turn they come into play, pump your entire Avrax squad. That can be pretty good in limited, I think. And then the next card, it's not great, but once again, it can be good in limited and draft events. Avon Fisher, for 3 and a blue, it's a 2/2 with flying that when it enters the battlefield, you get to draw a card. Not a huge deal, but I mean, it isn't bad. And then the next card is Battlefield Scrounger, which for 3 and double green is a 3/3 Centaur with Threshold, which that means if you have 7 or more cards in your graveyard, you get some kind of a bonus on the card, which in this case means this card gets +3/+3 until the, or wait, no. What does that say? Okay, so if you have 7 or more cards in your graveyard, you can put the top 3 cards of your graveyard on the bottom of your library and give this thing +3/+3 until the end of the turn. But you can only activate that once each turn. But it doesn't say it's sorcery speed, so you can do that at instant speed if you want to. Then the next card, once again, not great, but it can be decent. For 2 and double green, it's a sorcery that says destroy target artifact or enchantment. And you may not think that's great at first, but you can pay 2 to discard it from your hand, in other words, cycle it, and draw a card. So, decent, not horrible. But anyways, next card is Cackling Fiend, which for 2/2 and double black, it is a 2/1 with a 2/1 zombie? Huh. And when it enters the battlefield, each opponent discards a card. Once again, not great. It's pretty expensive, but yeah, it's not the, yeah, you know what, I'm not even gonna, it's a pretty bad card. It's a pretty bad card. But anyways, next up is Chain Lightning, which is a very good card, and I'm pretty sure it's played in quite a few Legacy decks, because for 1 red mana, it's a sorcery, but, hear me out, this card deals 3 damage to any target. Then, a player or permanence controller may pay double red, and if they do, they may copy this spell and choose new targets for the copy. So you could kind of go back and forth with this and be like, I'm going to deal you 3 damage. No, I'm going to deal you 3 damage. No, I'm going to deal you 3 damage. And just do that over and over again. So I don't know. You can do some pretty broken stuff with it in Legacy, I recall. I'm not exactly sure how the combo works in Legacy, but I'm pretty confident, I'm pretty sure that you can do some pretty sweet stuff with that card in Legacy decks. Next up is a Cleric of the Forward Order. For 1 white, it is a 2/2 human cleric that says when it enters the battlefield, you gain 2 life for each other card on the battlefield named Cleric of the Forward Order, that you control anyways. So, you can gain a max of 2, 4, 6, 8 life when this card enters. Not great, but I mean, 2 mana. It can be decent, like I said earlier. It can be a decent card in, in draft events, so... not great, but not bad. And then for 1 and a blue, the next card is Cloud of Fairies. So it's a 1/1 fairy with flying. That says when it enters the battlefield, untap up to 2 target lands. And you can cycle it. In other words, pay 2, discard from your hand, draw a card. So, yeah, that's not bad. I mean, it's basically a free 1/1 with flying. So, yeah, that's not horrible. And the next card... man, I love this card. I can't remember how long it's been since I played it, but anyways, Coal Stoker is the next card. For 3 and a red, it's a 3/3 with Elemental that says when it enters the battlefield, from your hand anyways, you add 3 red mana to your mana pool. So, I mean, that can be pretty decent. Kind of like with the last thing, it's essentially a 1 red mana 3/3 if you use that 3 red mana to, like, cast another spell or something. So, I mean, that's not bad. But anyways, it's a good card. It's not a great card, but this next card is a card that you can play in every single format, or basically every single format, and it will always be good. The classic double blue counter spell. Instant counter target spell. What else needs to be said about it? I mean, it's a busted card. It's always been a busted card. It's always going to be a busted card. So anyways, next card. I think I'm going to play this in a Pauper deck here soon, but I'm not 100% sure. Deep Analysis. For 3 and a blue, it is a sorcery that says target player draws 2 cards. Now at first you may think, well, that card sucks. But you can also pay 1 and a blue to flash it back. But you also have to take 3 damage. So, not great, but hey. You pay 6 mana and 3 life to draw 4 cards. That in Pauper, where you can only play commons, isn't all that bad. But anyways, next up is Dragon Engine, which for 3 mana is a 1/3 artifact construct that you can pay to give all copies of Dragon Engine that you have on the field, +1/+0 until the end of turn. I cannot read with these sunglasses on. I don't know why I had them on, but hey, it doesn't matter. Now I can see everything more clearly. But anyways, Dragon Engine, 3 mana, it's a 1/3. It can bump your entire squad of Dragon Engines. Not great, but at the same time, not horrible. And then next up is Drifting Meadow, which is the land that enters the battlefield tap. It taps for a white, though. And hey, if you don't want to play a tap plains, basically, you can pay 2 mana, discard from your hand, and draw a card. So, there you go. And then next up is Duress, which for 1 black mana is a sorcery that says target opponent reveals their hand, and you choose a non-land, non-creature card from your opponent's hand, and they have to discard that card. Classic card. I mean, it's played in a lot of formats. It's played in some commander decks. It's played in quite a few Pauper decks and modern. Well, not as many modern decks, but it's played in a lot of decks. I mean, it's a classic card. Well, what else needs to be said about it? But anyways, next up is another card that's pretty classic, at least in my dad's world. Elvish Aberration. 5 in the green, 4/5 elf mutant that taps for 3 green mana. And you can pay 2 mana to discard it from your hand if you want to search your library for a basic forest card. No, for a forest card. Put that card into your hand, then shuffle. So, you can get yourself a Triumph if you want. In Commander, that ain't half bad. Same is true with, I guess, some modern decks. And I guess you could play this card in Pauper too. As like a kind of big finisher that can also tap for a lot of mana if you want to have that in the deck. Or hey, you can get one of your like dual lands, like one of your snow-covered dual lands, like the cards from Kaldheim. You all know what I'm talking about, right? Right? It doesn't matter. But anyways, next up is Ember Beast, which for 2 and a red is a 3/4. Already looks pretty decent, but it can't attack or block alone. Now you may at first think, this card sucks. Well, in aggro decks, it can be pretty decent. It may not be played that much in Pauper and other formats, but in like a sealed draft event or something, having this out, it's a 3 mana 3/4, so it's got pretty decent stats, and a lot of the time you're going to be attacking with multiple creatures, so it's not bad. It's not great, but it's not bad. Anyways, next up is Emerald Charm, which for 1 green mana is an instant that says you choose one out of 3 different modes, which are destroy untap target permanent, destroy a non-aura enchantment, or target creature loses flying until the end of turn. Is that card great? Sort of. But I don't know. It's a good removal spell, I guess, for certain enchantments, and I guess you can untap like lands or something, but it's not great. But it can be decent. Like, it can kind of be used as ramp if you use it for, like, bounce lands or something. Like, you tap a bounce land that also adds a green to your mana pool, use it to play this, untap that land, and basically you get 1 free mana. So, decent? Yeah, I guess. But anyways, next up is Empty the Warrens, which for 3 and a red is a sorcery that has Storm, and says create 2 1/1 red goblin creature tokens. So if you don't know what Storm is, then you've never played Legacy before, first off. And second off, Storm is incredible, because when you cast this spell, if the card has Storm, you copy it for each spell cast before it. And in Storm decks, in Legacy anyways, you're like playing 20 spells in a single turn because, I mean, it's Legacy. What? It's Legacy. So, I mean, it's just like you're playing tons and tons of spells. You play this, make tons of tokens, and hey, if you got like a Concording Crossroads or something on the field, swing in with your army of goblins, and you win the game. That ain't half bad. But anyways, it's a good card. It can be played in Storm decks and Legacy and whatnot. And hey, maybe it can be played in draft events. So, who knows? Maybe it can be played in multiple decks outside of just Legacy. But anyways, next up is Evil Eye of Orms by Gore. I don't know what this card is. It's a pretty old card, I imagine. For 4 and a black, it's a 3/6 eye. Already doesn't look great. It says non-eye creatures you control can't attack. It's definitely not good. Oh, hey, Kelly. Just shaking your hand. Hey, Kelly. But, this card says that your non-eye creatures can attack, which is not very good, and can't be blocked except by walls, though. This card can't be blocked except by walls. No, this card sucks. You should not play it in any format. It sucks. It's horrible. It's horrible. Anyways, well, no, that you control can't attack. Okay, never mind. But anyways, Fae Adia. I don't think I'm saying that right. Seer, for 1 and a green, it's a 1/1 human shaman that says you can tap it to draw a card and reveal it. If it isn't a land, discard it. Yeah, that card's not great. I'm just going to say that now. That card is not very good. Next up is Festering Goblin. 1 black for a 1/1 zombie goblin that when it dies, it gets -1/-1 until the end of turn. Or target creature gets -1/-1 until the end of turn. Not great, but I mean, in draft events, or I guess in Pauper as well, that can be a pretty decent card. Maybe not played in formats outside of those two, but it can still be a pretty decent card in my opinion. But anyways, next up is a card that I think is very, very good. Frantic Search. For Tuna Blue, it's an instant, and you draw 2 cards. Okay? And then you discard 2 cards. Okay, getting a little less great. But then you untap up to 3 lands. Not the lands that just any 3 lands you want. So, yeah, that card can be pretty good, in my opinion at least. I mean, that card, it's basically... Just kind of move Pauper, correct? Yeah, I'm kind of covering the commons today just to check out a lot of the cards that like you can play in Pauper decks from cards in this set, but yeah. But Frantic Search basically allows you to, and oh, by the way, this card is not legal in Pauper, if all you Pauper players in the chat are like, interesting, I definitely want to play that in a deck. It's not legal, because, I mean, you can generate quite a bit of mana with that card. I mean, it's a free mana, draw 2, discard 2. Basically. I mean, it can be used to generate more mana, but yeah, it's a really, really good card is what I'm trying to say. But anyways, next up is Giant Spider. For 3 and a green, it's a 2/4 spider with reach. It's not great. It's not bad. It's a good creature. Because it's got reach. And it's a decent sized body. For 4 mana, it's not great. But it's still a pretty decent card overall. And then next up is Glintwing Invoker, which for 4 and a blue is a 3/3 human wizard mutant. A lot of keywords there, or a lot of creature types there. And it says for 7 and a blue, 8 mana, already not looking great. This card gets +3/+3 and gains flying until the end of turn. Yeah, that card's not very good. Basically, you spend like what? 12 mana for a 6/6 with flying. I'm pretty sure it's actually 13. 5 and 7. Yeah, that's 12. No, that's 5 and 8. Yeah, that's 13 mana for a 6/6 with flying until the end of turn. Then it's back to a 3/3. That's bad. That's really bad. But anyways, next up is a card that's not bad, and it's played in all kinds of Goblin decks. Pauper Goblin decks, Modern Goblin decks, all the Goblin decks. Goblin Matron. Tuna Red, 1/1 Goblin. Doesn't look great, but hey, when it enters, you search your library for a Goblin card, reveal it, put it into your hand, and shuffle. Do I need to say anything more? I didn't think so. Yeah, Goblin Matron is a pretty good card, gotta say. Next up is another Goblin, Goblin Medics. Which I don't understand exactly why this thing is a medic, because you'll see here in a sec. For Tuna Red, it's a 1/1 Goblin Shaman. Doesn't look great, and when it becomes tapped, it deals 1 damage to any target. Overall, not a good card at all. But, I mean, it's a medic, so therefore it's a good card, right? Because medics help you out. No? No, that card's not good? I shouldn't play it in decks? Okay. Alright. Anyways, next up is Goblin Turncoat? Yeah, I think I said that right. Turncoat. For 1 black, it is a 2/1 Goblin Mercenary that allows you to sacrifice a Goblin to regenerate it. And what that means is if this card would die this turn, instead, return it to the battlefield tapped. So, that's pretty solid in my opinion. That's pretty solid. And then, here's a card that broke a ton of formats in Magic the Gathering history, and it's only a common. And yes, before any of you in chat ask, it is not legal in Pauper, or I don't think it's legal in Legacy either, or Vintage. But anyways, this card is Grape Shot, which, if you don't recognize the name, then you're very lucky. Because for 1 red, it's a sorcery that deals 1 damage to any target. Okay. Why is this card so good? It's got Storm. Now, if you weren't here when I was talking about that other Storm card, yeah, this card gets copied for every spell you cast before it. So for 1 red, you deal 1 damage to any target. But if you played like 7 other spells before this one, then you deal 7 more damage to that target. I mean, you can choose new targets, but a lot of the time, basically what this card is, it's like you play it, and like you played a gajillion spells before it, and you one-shot your opponent. And for 2 mana, and it's a common, and it's not worth anything. You see why this card's banned in a lot of formats. So anyways, next up is Hermetic? Wow, these names are really weird. Hermetic Study. For 1 blue, it's an enchantment aura that enchants a creature. And that enchanted creature has tap this creature, and that creature deals 1 damage to any target. So basically, you turn a creature into a prodigal sorcerer for 2 mana. Not great. It's fun. It's not great. I mean, hey, if you give that card Infect with a card like Phyresis, which is also an enchantment for 2 mana, that you can make that creature you can make that creature pretty powerful. So anyways, next up is Horseshoe Crab. For 2 blue, it is a 1/3 crab that for 1 blue mana, you can untap it. Yeah, I don't exactly see how this card can be used in any kind of combo, but I'm pretty sure there are ways out there. I'm pretty sure there's an ability out there that, like, when a creature untaps, you get something, and with this card, if, like, you generate tons and tons of mana, which there's another blue card that you're gonna see in this video that produces a lot of blue mana for 1 blue mana. Anyways, this card can probably be used in some kind of broken combo that I just can't think of. Probably in Legacy or Modern, but I just can't think of that combo. But anyways, next up is Howl from Beyond, which for X and a black is an instant that gives a target creature +X/+O until the end of turn. I guess that card can be good. It's kind of like a Fireball. I think I said that right. where you just, like, spend all your mana to make one creature, and it's at instant speed. So, like, if your opponent didn't block a creature and you have a ton of mana open, you can make one creature really, really big, and then, like, get your opponent really, really close to dead, or just dead. But, I mean, this card isn't all that reliable, really. Like, it can probably pretty easily be countered, and, I mean, I definitely wouldn't play it in a format like Pauper or Modern or Legacy, but the only place I could probably see this card getting played is in a place like Draft, when you draft with your friends. That's the only place I can see this card actually getting play. But anyways, next up is... I hate these names. They're so hard to read. Hylopeturus. How do you... What even is this word? So, Hyalopeturus. I guarantee I'm not saying that right. But whatever that word is, Lemur, which for Fauna Black is a spirit. It's a 4/3. And for 0 mana, you can give it -1/-0 and flying until the end of turn. For 5 mana, it can be a 3/3 of flying at instant speed, which I guess isn't all that bad. So, I mean, yeah, I think that card's pretty solid in, not Pauper, but I think that card could see some play in draft decks for sure. I mean, it can be, yeah, that can be a pretty solid card. I mean, yeah. It can be a solid blocker because you can make it a flyer at instant speed, and it can just be a good attacker if your opponents don't have any flyers. So I can see this card getting a little bit of play. But anyways, next up is, like I said, I hate these names. Icatian Javelineers. Okay, that wasn't that hard. For 1 white mana, it's a 1/1 human soldier that says, oh, it's a soldier. Should I put it in my soldier deck and make it a modern deck? Nope. Okay. This card enters the battlefield with a javelin counter on it, and you can tap and remove that javelin counter from it and deal 1 damage to any target. So it's a 1 mana 1/1 that, hey, you can tap it and deal 1 damage to any target 1 time. That's not very good. I mean, yeah, I just can't see that card being any good whatsoever, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there's a way out there to, like, put more javelin counters on it. I mean, I've never even heard of a javelin counter, but hey, maybe it can be broken. Maybe there's a way to put tons of javelin counters on something, but whatever. Anyways, next up is Icarus Stick. For Tuna Black, it is a sorcery that gives a target creature -3/-3 until the end of turn. And, oh, I see why it's, okay. So, for Tuna Black, you give a creature -3/-3 at sorcery speed. But you can also pay 2 to discard it from your hand and draw a card. Okay? But you can also pay 3 in a black and use its Madness ability, which, if this card gets discarded, which you can do with the Cycle ability, you can cast it from your graveyard, and then it gets exiled. So, yeah, that ain't bad. That is not bad at all. That's not bad at all. Because, I mean, for 6 mana, you give a creature -3/-3 and draw a card. That's good, right? Nope, after thinking about it, that's not very good. I mean, hey, 3 mana sorcery, give a creature -3/-3 is the only thing I can see this card actually being good for, but who knows. And here's a card that is, in my opinion, really good in, like, a mono blue standard deck right now. Impulse. For 1 blue, instant, look at the top 4 cards of your library, put 1 card from among those cards into your hand, and put the rest on the bottom in any order. I mean, it's a good card. It's not a great card, but I think it's a pretty good card. You can play it, hey, you can play it in standard right now. And you can, I would say that's a pretty solid card to play in, like, Pauper decks, and definitely draft decks, but I wouldn't see it in any kind of, like, modern or legacy or commander deck. I mean, maybe in a commander deck, but I can't see any kind of deck that could, like, stack the top of, well, there are a couple decks out there. Master. Hey, Taz. How's it going, Taz? Master Taz has entered the house. Yes. Master. You're not my master. I am the master here. But anyways, it doesn't matter. But Impulse, yeah, it's a decent card. It's not great, but it's not bad. And next up is Jalum Tome. I think I'm saying that right. For 3 mana, yeah, it's an artifact that you can pay to tap it and draw a card and then discard a card. Not great, not horrible, but yeah, it can be played in draft decks. I guess it could be played in pauper decks, but I wouldn't really see it played in any pauper decks. And once again, I could probably see this getting played as like a kind of card in a commander deck, maybe, in like decks that care about drawing cards, but overall, not a very solid card. And next up is Juggernaut, which in the most expensive deck in the world, this is actually the win con for that deck. Just drawing an infinite amount of cards until you hit this thing. And this card, for 4 mana, is a 5/3 artifact Juggernaut that attacks each combat if able, and can't be blocked by walls. So basically, the most expensive deck ever, like you take an infinite amount of extra turns. This is a legacy deck, by the way. You take an infinite amount of extra turns and draw tons and tons of cards, and use tons of ramp pieces to get that amount of mana. And then you play Juggernaut, and with all those extra turns, you just attack your opponent 4 times, and they're dead. This isn't a great card other than in that one deck. I mean, I guess it could be played in other decks. I guess it could be decent in a draft. But overall, it's not a super solid card. But hey, in the most expensive deck in the world, it's the win con. So, it's not great. But hey, it's the win con in the most expensive deck in the world. So there's that. Anyways, next up is Kavu Primarch. There's no way I'm saying that right. But for Fauna Green, it is a 3/3 Kavu with Kicker for 4 mana. And it's got Convoke, which, as you're casting this spell, you can tap any amount of creatures you control. And for each creature tapped this way, this card costs 1 less to cast. 1 generic less to cast. So if you tap 3 mana, if you tap 3 creatures and don't kick this, then it costs 1 green mana for a 3/3. If you tap 7 creatures, then you pay 1 green mana for a 3/3 that enters the battlefield with 4+1/+1 counters on it. Because if you kick it, it enters the battlefield with 4+1/+1 counters on it. So I mean, it's not great, but I can definitely see it getting played in certain pauper decks, I guess, if you want to do some kind of weird combo pauper deck. And I could definitely see it getting played in draft decks, for sure. And next up is, once again, I hate the words, Kageladoran Gargoyle. Is that even a word? Kageladoran. Kageladoran. That's actually really fun to say. Kageladoran. Kageladoran. Don't know how to pronounce it. For 5 and a white, it's a 3/3 flying first strike that says, when it deals, okay, so basically it's a 5 and a white, 3/3 with flying first strike and lifelink. I was reading it and I was like, that sounds a lot like lifelink, because it is. Because lifelink, way back in the day, didn't have a actual keyword for it. It's like whenever this creature deals damage to a player, you gain that much life. So, the more you know, the more you know. I guarantee none of you understand that. Well, no, I guarantee, yeah. It's a thing on YouTube. It doesn't matter. Crowson Restorer is up next for Tuna Green. It's a 1/2 human druid that taps to untap a land, which isn't great at first until you read that it's got Threshold. So, once again, if you got 7 or more cards in your graveyard, you can tap it and untap 3 lands instead. Which, kind of like that card from earlier, Frantic Search, untapping lands in formats like Legacy and Commander ain't that bad at all. And this card in a self-mill deck, you get so much mana. I mean, it's insane. And, I mean, I guess I can see this getting played in pauper decks as well. Because, believe it or not, there are self-mill decks out there in pauper. I don't think there are any green versions, but, well, versions with green in it, I should say. But who knows, maybe there are. And I just have no clue what I'm talking about. Which is probably the case. Anyways, up next is... Wow, there are a lot of commons left to go. Next up is Leaden Fists, which for Tuna Blue is an enchantment aura with flash that gives a creature +3/+3, but it doesn't untap during its controller's untap step. Okay. That card's garbage. Just gonna say it now. That card's pretty much garbage. Unless you play it on one of your opponent's creatures. But, I mean, I guess this could be good, like, kind of removal for one of your opponent's creatures. But other than that, if they ever find a way to untap it, which in this set, I think there are quite a few ways to untap your stuff, then your opponent's creature gets +3/+3. So, can't play it in draft, don't play it in Pauper. So yeah, overall, not a very solid card. But anyways, next up is Lightning Reflexes, which for 1 and a red is an enchantment aura that says when this... What the heck does that... You may cast this as though it had flash. If you cast it anytime a sorcery couldn't have been cast, the controller of that permanent, it becomes What? Okay, so if you play this at flash speed, which you can, then you have to sack it at the end of turn. And this card just gives the enchanted creature +1/+1 and first strike. So I guess this could be played as like a save spell against your against your opponent on their turn when you're going to block their creatures. But other than that, that card just made no sense. Just say this card has flash, and if you play it at flash speed, you have to sack this at the end of turn. And that card, at least the way that I'm reading it, says way too many words. But anyways, next up is LOL, which I guarantee, Barrel House, you in the chat, I guarantee you love this card. You're gonna love this card. For 1 and a green, prevent all combat damage that would be dealt this turn. Early on in the game, when we used to play well, we still play cards. When we played cards, he played so many of these kinds of cards. I'm just going to prevent all the combat damage. Oh, you're going to swing out and kill me? Nope. I'm going to prevent all that combat damage. God, it's so annoying. And hey, guess what? You can also pay 2, discard from your hand, and draw a card. So, yeah. And, yep, there's Barrel House in the chat saying, yep, that card's sweet and amazing. I'm going to play it against you in draft, and I'm going to annoy you. Thanks. Thanks, Barrel House. I hate that. I hate those kinds of cards. I hate fog effects so much. Anyways, next up is Macetail Hystrodon? Hystrodon. That's so hard to say. I don't know if it's just me, but I can't say that. For 6 and a red, it's a 4/4 with first strike and haste. For 7 mana. But hey, I mean, you can pay 3 and discard it to draw a card, so. I see a lot of cards that say Cycle right now. Holy crap. There are so many Cycle cards. Mana War. Man-O-War. I wish I could say I wish I could, like, put above my head the way that thing's spelled. It's like man, and then there's nothing, like it's a space, and then there's an O, and then there's another space, and it says war. It's like Man-O-War. It's so weird. Why? I guarantee a lot of these cards that are confusing the crap out of me were put in sets like Alpha and 4th edition and stuff like that because they make no sense. The name makes no sense. But anyways, Tuna Blue, 2/2 Jellyfish. When it enters the battlefield... No fog effects in your deck. You're not allowed to play any sort of fog effect in any of your decks. Anyone who's playing in the chat right now, or anyone in the chat right now that's playing Magic the Gathering that plays green, never play a fog effect or else. But yeah, Mana War, I'm pretty sure you just said it, Alfonso. Jellyfish Tribal. This card could go in Jellyfish Tribal. Oh, that makes no sense. For 2 and a blue, it's a 2/2 when it enters. Return target creature to its owner's hand. I mean, that's actually not that bad of a card at all. It's an unsummon effect on a 2/2 for 3 mana. I mean, that ain't bad at all. And yeah, Barrel House is laughing at me right now because I'm raging so much about stinking fog effects. I hate them so much. None of you know the pain that I've gone through because of fog effects, but it's horrible. I hate it. I hope none of you ever have to experience it. But yeah, it causes you to get some pretty bad diseases, mental diseases, and I'm pretty sure it drives you crazy over time. I mean, as you can tell that I'm getting crazier and crazier as I upload more and more videos, all thanks to Barrel House. He's rotting my brain. He's destroying it. So one day, if I just disappear, it's because Barrel House rotted my brain. It's all because of Barrel House. Anyways, next up, I don't know why I said that. That made no sense to me. But anyways, next up is Mind Stone, which for 2 mana is a card played in just about every single commander deck out there. It's an artifact, you tap it for a colorless, you pay 1 tap, sack it, draw a card. It's a classic. It's been around for a really long time, and I mean, who doesn't love to play in Commander? But anyways, next up is MOG War Marshall, which for 1 red is a 1/1 Goblin Warrior with Echo, which you have to pay its Echo cost at the beginning of your upkeep, which is 1 red, or else you have to sacrifice it. But what this card says, when it enters or leaves the battlefield, well, when it enters the battlefield or dies, I should say, you create a 1/1 red Goblin. So you can pay 2, make a 1/1. Well, you could play this, which is a 1/1, and make a 1/1, and you go to your next turn, and then you sack it, because you're not going to play the Echo cost, or you're not going to pay the Echo cost, more than likely, and then you get another Goblin. So, that card ain't bad, in my opinion. But anyways, next up is Momentary Blink, which is a annoying card, to say the least, in Blink decks. For 1 white, it's an instant that says exile, target creature you control. Then return that card to the battlefield at the beginning. Or wait, no. Okay, so you exile one of your creatures and it comes right back into play. Now you may think that's stupid, but basically think of like the most broken cards that when they enter the battlefield they do something crazy. Like, for all you Commander players out there, Avenger of Zendikar. I'm pretty sure I said that right. But basically, you play that, make tons of plant tokens, then you play Momentary Blink on your Avenger of Zendikar, blink it, comes back, make way more plants. You get double the plants for 2 mana. It's stupid. And hey, guess what? For 3 and a blue, you can play it from your graveyard again. Then you exile it afterwards, but hey. So for 6 mana, you get triple the plant tokens from Avenger of Zendikar. That's the only example I could think of. I couldn't think of any other broken enter the battlefield effects off the top of my head. But there you go. Anyways, next up is Mystic Zealot, which for 3 and a white is a 2/4 human nomad mystic. I can also tell this is an old card. And it's got Threshold. So as long as there are 7 or more cards in your graveyard, this card gets +1/+1 and has flying. So actually, this card isn't that bad at all, because basically, for 4 mana, in a lot of decks, this can be a 3/4 with flying. Which, I mean, isn't that bad at all. I mean, like a in a black-white, like, Orsov Sack deck in Pauper, I mean, this card's gonna be a 3/4 flying quite a bit. So, this card isn't bad at all, in my opinion. But anyways, next up is another annoying card for Commander and all formats. All formats. Nightscape Familiar. For 1 black, it is a 1/1 zombie that makes your blue and red spells cost 1 less to cast. And for 1 black, you can regenerate this card. So it's really hard to kill, and it makes your spells in a Grixis deck, in a black, red, blue deck, cost 1 less. Is that stupid? Yep. Should that card be played in this? I wanted to die. Anyways, next up is Nomad Decoy, which for 2 and a white is a 1/2 human nomad that for 1 white you can tap it and tap a creature. Or you could pay double white if you have threshold, well, if you have 7 more cards in your graveyard, and tap 2 creatures instead. Not great, but I mean, that ain't bad. It's not horrible for 3 mana. But next up is Obsessive Search, which for 1 blue mana is an instant that allows you to draw a card. And if you were to discard this card, then you can pay 1 blue and exile it instead of putting it into your graveyard, and you get to draw a card for 1 blue mana. So, I mean, if you discard it, or if you just play it for 1 blue mana, you draw a card. That ain't bad. But anyways, next up is Orim's Thunder, which for 2 and a white is an instant with kicker for red. So it destroys an artifact or enchantment, but if the spell is kicked, it deals damage equal to that permanent's mana value to a target creature. What is that in the chat, Taz? Like 2 baby faces. That's weird. Okay, I'm not going to question it. Next up is Ornithopter. The classic Ornithopter. 0 mana, 0/2 artifact, flying. This is a great way to enable Storm, by the way. Just play tons of 0 mana artifacts and make your Storm count go up and then play Grape Shot and win the game. Yeah, Ornithopter's great. Next up is Avanize, which for 1 and a blue is an instant that says, until the end of turn, target creature loses all abilities and has base power and toughness 0/1. Okay. That's annoying. Next up is, another classic card that Barrel House has played against me that annoys me to no end. Pacifism! 1 and a white, enchantment aura, enchanted creature can't attack or block. Don't we all love these kinds of effects? Don't we wish that they never existed? I do too. Next up is, I'm not even going to talk about Pacifism. It's a good card. Play it in whatever deck you want. If you do, screw you. I'm never going to play against you. Next up is Penumbra Bobcat. For 2 and a black, 2 and a green, it is a 2/1 cat that when it dies, you create a 2/1 black cat creature token. So 3 mana 2/1. When it dies, you make a 2/1. Or 3 mana 2/1. When it dies, you make a 2/1. Not bad. It was really hard for me to say it. Yes, yes, Taz, that was a cat. It was a cat. It was a cat, Taz. But yeah, the card's decent. It's not that good. But next up is Penengrin Drake, which for 4 and a blue is a 2/3 Drake with flying that when it enters the battlefield, untap up to 5 target lands. Wow. That is actually really busted if you were to play that. I mean, it's 5 mana for a 2/3 flyer, which isn't great, but in a limited event, you could play 2 big spells in 1 turn. I mean, in Pauper, you could do the same. Yeah, that ain't a bad card at all. I'm not going to really say, like, if it's a good or bad card. I'm just saying that, like, it's not a bad card, and you can definitely play it in decks, and it can definitely be broken in those decks. If you play it right, I should say. But anyways, next up is Phantom Flock. For 3 in double white, it is a 0/0 Bird Soldier Spirit. A Bird Soldier Spirit. Are these like the spirits of the Egyptian Empire, or they actually do kind of look like those guys. But anyways, it's got flying and it enters the battlefield with 3 +1/+1 counters on it. And if damage would be dealt to it, prevent that damage and remove a +1/+1 counter from this card. Yes, Taz, it's a ghost. Spirits are ghosts. Yes, it was a ghost. Thanks, Taz, for being the only one. Okay, next up is Phyrexian Debaser. For 3 and a black, it's a 2/2 with Phyrexian Carrier with flying that you can tap to sack it and give a creature -2/-2 until the end of turn. not bad. Not horrible, but not bad. Next up is Phrexine Ghoul, which for Tuna Black is a 2/2 Phyrexian zombie that allows you to sack a creature, and then this card gets +2/+2 until the end of turn. Not that good, in my opinion. And, well, no, actually it is pretty good, because it's a free sack outlet, like 3 mana for a 2/2. It pumps itself when you sack creatures. Only comes, I can't wait to play the deck. We need a chance. Hit a giant. I could not read all of that. There was way too much going on in that chat, so I'm just gonna ignore it, Barrel House. I'm sorry, but there was too much in that one little bit of text. But yeah, for 3 mana, it's a 2/2 that if you sack a creature, you don't have to pay any mana, and you can do it at instant speed, and it pumps itself, which I actually don't think is all that bad now that I think about it more and more. So yeah, it's not bad. Only in commons, can't wait to play this set. Yeah, the commons are good. Well, most of them are decent. Yeah, I can't wait to play this set too. But Phrexine Rager's up next. We all know it. We all love it. Tuna Black, 2/2, Phyrexian Horror. When it enters, you draw a card and lose a life. What else needs to be said? It should be played in Pauper. It should be played in Draft. It should be played in Commander. I don't think it's good enough to be played in Legacy or Modern, but I guess Vintage too. But I mean, it's still a good card. But anyways, next up is Polluted Mire, which enters the battlefield tapped. It taps for a black. You can pay 2, discard it, draw a card. We saw I think it was the white one earlier, and yeah, it's not great. But anyways, next up is Primal Boost, which for Tuna Green is an instant that gives a target creature +4/+4 until the end of turn. But if you pay Tuna Green to discard it and draw a card, you give a target creature +1/+1 until the end of turn. Also at instant speed if you want to do that. So I guess it's not that bad. Still pretty bad in my opinion though. Next up is Radiance Judgement. For 3 and a white, it is an instant that destroys a creature with power 4 or greater. And hey, if 3 mana is too expensive for you to do that, well, you can pay 2, discard this card to draw a card. So, not bad at all. And next up is Remedy, which for 1 white is an instant that actually ain't that bad. Prevent the next 5 damage that would be dealt this turn to any number of targets, divided as you choose. It's like if some of your creatures are gonna die, like if 2 creatures are gonna die, and one's being dealt 3 damage and one's being dealt 2 damage, you can prevent all of that damage for 2 mana, which I think isn't all that. I mean, it's not a great card, but it's not a bad card. It's definitely not, like, it can definitely be played in, like, draft events for sure. But I don't think it could be played anywhere in any kind of competitive deck anyways, outside of draft. But anyways, next up is Remote Isle. It's the same thing as the last couple lands. It enters tapped. It taps for a blue. You can pay 2, discard it, draw a card. It's not a great card. Doesn't need anything. It doesn't need to be talked about anymore. Anyways, next up is Renewed Faith, which for 2 and a white is an instant. And hey, you gain 6 life. However, if you pay 1 and a white and discard it to draw a card, you still gain 2 life. And you can still do that at instant speed, which to me is not that bad at all. And next up is Ridgetop. Yeah, Ridgetop Raptor. For this card isn't horrible. For 3 and a red, it's a 2/1 dinosaur beast with double strike. So I mean, I guess if you make it bigger, then it can, yeah. I mean, it's not a great card, but it's still not horrible. But next up is, oh geez, that card's kind of annoying if you have that, if you're playing that in multiples. Sandstorm. 1 green mana instant, and it deals 1 damage to each attacking creature. In a way, it's like a fog effect, but worse for your opponents anyways. Because, I mean, if you tap a green mana and play this, and you play enough copies of it, you negate the damage and kill a lot of creatures. So yeah, Sandstorm, I think, could definitely see playing draft decks. and possibly some Pauper decks, and who knows, maybe even a couple decks outside of those two formats. So, who knows. But next up is another pretty classic card from Magic's past, Savannah Lions. 1 white, 2/1 cat. It's not a great card, but hey, it's a classic. So, there you go. Next up is Saturns Desire, which for 2 and a green is an enchantment aura that the enchanted creature, it says that the enchanted creature gets +2/+2. However, if you have 7 or more cards in your graveyard, all creatures able to block the enchanted creature do so. Basically, if that creature were to have, like, Trample and Death Touch, or even just Death Touch, you could wipe out your opponent's entire board for 3 mana, which isn't all that bad. And if it has Trample, you assign 1 damage to each of those creatures. All those creatures will die, the rest of the damage tramples over, and you still deal damage to your opponents. Not a bad card at all. In draft, anyways. I guess it could be seen in decks outside of draft, but I'd say overall that card can definitely be pretty solid in the right deck. And then next up is a card I love a lot. Kirk Prospector. For 1 red mana, it's a 1/1 Goblin, and you can sack a Goblin and add a red mana to your mana pool. I was actually building a mono-red Goblin deck for Christmas, for a Christmas special, but I couldn't finish building that deck in time. But basically, you would use this card, and with another card in the deck, you would basically get infinite red mana, and then you'd be able to play all the spells off the top of your deck that you would want to. If you know what the combo is, I'd be curious what you think this combo is, but it's an incredible card, and it's a really fun combo. And then next up is Slippery Karst. It's a land, enters tap, taps for a green, can pay 2, cycle it, discard it to draw a card. And Smoldering Crater is up next, same thing, but taps for a red. Like I said before, not great cards. The entire cycle is not great. It's not horrible, but it's not great. And then next up is Snap, which for 1 and a blue is an instant that returns target creature you control to its owner's hand, and you untap up to 2 lands. Or up to 1 target creature to its owner's hand, and you untap 2 lands. So, yeah, that's a pretty solid card, in my opinion. And next up is Solar Blast, which for 3 and a red is an instant that deals 3 damage to any target. And if you pay 1 in double red to discard it to draw a card, then you deal 1 damage to any target. Yeah, this card isn't great. It's not bad, but it isn't great. The card up next, however, I do think is quite a bit better. In Storm decks, for sure. Spark Ray. For 1 red mana, it's an instant that deals 1 damage to any target, and you can pay 1 red to discard to draw a card. So in Cycle decks, it can be good, and in Storm decks, it can be good. So, good in Legacy, I guess, to a point for Storm decks. It's a good card. It's a good card. It's definitely a good card, and I can definitely see it getting played in Pauper, in Legacy for sure, in a lot of formats. And next up is Spirit Link, which for 1 white mana is an enchantment aura that gives the enchanted creature lifelink. Basically, I'm not going to read the text where it says, like, the enchanted creature, when it deals combat damage, you gain that much life. It's, yeah. 1 white, enchanted creature, it's got lifelink. It's a solid card for sure. And, yeah, it's a solid card for sure. And then next up is Stonewood Invoker, which for 1 and a green is a 2/2 elf mutant that for 7 and a green, yay, pay tons of mana and get basically no bonus. It gets +5/+5 until the end of turn. I guess that's not horrible, but like if it said trample, it'd be a lot better. But to be fair, this is only a common, but I mean, for 8 mana, I'd expect a little bit better ability. Once again, not a very good card, and I guess you could play it in draft events, but I wouldn't see it anywhere outside of those events at all. But anyways, next up is Street Wraith, which for 3 and 2 black is a 3/4 Wraith with Swamp Walk. So if your opponent controls a swamp, this creature cannot be blocked by that player. So, yeah, that's pretty good. And hey, guess what? You can also pay 2 life to discard this card and draw a card. That's pretty solid. I'd say this is actually a really solid common because, I mean, I think black is going to be a pretty popular color in draft for this set. So this card having Swamp Walk is pretty good. And same thing in Pauper, black's pretty popular. And I mean, yeah, it's pretty good. And it can be played in any kind of cycle deck. For Pauper, for Modern, for any kind of format. And it can be played in any kind of colors because, I mean, you pay 2 life, discard it to draw a card. I mean, it's not like you have to spend black mana to play this cycle cost, so definitely not a bad card at all. In fact, I actually think it's one of the more solid commons we've seen so far. It's definitely not up there as, like, the top common out there. I mean, Spark Ray, Counterspell, all those cards are way better than this, but it's still a pretty solid card overall. But next up is Subterranean Scout, which for 1 or red is a 2/1 Goblin Scout that when it enters the battlefield, target creature with power 2 or less cannot be blocked this turn. So actually, that card can be pretty solid because, once again, bringing up that Modern deck, and actually even the Pauper Goblin deck I'm building right now, you would play this card and make one of your creatures unblockable, and there's a way in the deck to where you spend, let's see, 2, 3, 4 mana and give your creatures +4/+1 until the end of turn. So, yeah, you basically make one of your goblins with 2 power unblockable, then you give them 4 extra power, your opponent's taking 6 damage no matter what. That card can definitely be solid in a Goblin deck. Maybe not the Pauper Goblin deck I'm building, but it can definitely be a really solid card. Not just in Pauper decks, but in other decks as well. Anyways, next up is Sun Clasp, which for 1 white is an enchantment aura that gives the enchanted creature +1/+3, and for 1 white mana, you can return the enchanted creature to its owner's hand. So in a kind of Voltron deck, this can actually be incredible protection, because, I mean, it protects the enchanted creature, so, and it gives it a decent buff of +1 power and 3 additional toughness, which isn't bad at all for 2 mana. So, overall, really solid card in any kind of Voltron deck. I mean, obviously, you're not going to really see any kind of Voltron decks in Modern or Legacy, but in, like, a Commander deck, in, like, a SRAM Commander deck, that card can definitely see some play, because that's a really solid enchantment in a Voltron deck, for sure. But next up is Sakata Lancer. For 2 and a red, it is a 2/2 Human Knight with haste and flanking. The ability that none of us know what it means. Whenever a creature without flanking blocks this creature, the blocking creature gets -1/-1 until the end of turn. So basically, if you block a creature without flanking, it gets -1/-1. Or when a creature blocks this, or when this blocks a creature, if it doesn't have flanking, it gets -1/-1. So actually, I mean, I guess this card isn't horrible for 3 minutes, and it's a 2/2 haste. Yeah, it can be a decent card in the early game and draft events. But other than that, I definitely wouldn't play this anywhere because, yeah, it's not very good. But anyways, next up is Symbiotic Beast, which for 4 and 2 green is a 4/4 insect beast. And when it dies, you create 4 1/1 green insect creature tokens. Once again, not a bad card, actually. I mean, in like a green and black, like a Golgari sack deck, you sack this and get 4 more creatures that are pretty good sack fodder. Yeah, pretty solid card overall. I would definitely recommend playing this in any kind of like Commander, Golgari sack deck, or even in certain Pauper ones, if you are playing a Golgari sack deck in Pauper, which I haven't seen yet, but who knows? Maybe they're out there. But next up is Terminal Moraine. It's a land that taps for a colorless mana, or you can pay 2 and sack this land and tap it to search your library for a basic land card, put that card onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle. So this card isn't that bad. I mean, it's not great for sure, but it definitely isn't all that bad. And next up is Terror, which for 1 and a black is an instant that destroys a non-artifact, non-black creature, and it can't be regenerated. And actually in this set so far, there have been quite a few creatures that have regenerate, or that allow you to regenerate it. And I'm pretty sure there are quite a few commons, or uncommons that say that as well. So overall, that actually can be a pretty decent removal spell in draft. But once again, outside of draft, not a great card at all, really. And next up is Twisted Experiment, which for 1 and a black is an enchantment aura that gives the enchanted creature +3 power and +1 toughness. It's not this. Yeah, no, that's not very good. Next up is just moving right along. Next up is Undying Rage, which for 2 and a red is an enchantment aura that gives the enchanted creature +2/+2, and it can't block. And then when the text is so small. When this card is put into your graveyard from the battlefield, return this card to its owner's hand. When this card is put into your graveyard from the battlefield. So yeah, it can be a decent card in draft, but once again, outside of draft, I definitely wouldn't really play this in any kind of deck. Alright, last 10 cards, not that much left. Next up is Urborg Siphon Mage. Ooh, there's a really good card coming up. Urborg Siphon Mage, 2 and a black, 2/2 human spell shaper, that for 2 and a black, you can tap it and discard a card, and each other player loses 2 life. Hey, and did you know? How's it going? But, for 2 and a black, you tap it, discard a card, and each other player loses 2 life, and you gain life equal to the amount of life lost this way. So in Commander, which I definitely wouldn't really play this in Commander, for 3 mana, you tap it, this creature, discard a card, each other player loses 2 life, and you gain 6 life. That definitely isn't all that bad at all. And hey, if you got Veto out, each opponent loses 6 more life. So actually, in a way, 3 mana, tap it, discard a card, each opponent loses 8 life, and you gain 6. That ain't bad. Next up is Urborg Uprising. For 4 and a black, it is a sorcery that returns up to 2 target creature cards from your graveyard to your hand, and then you draw a card. So, not a bad card at all. And then Veld Serpent, for 2 and a blue, it is an enchantment that says when an opponent casts a spell, if this card is an enchantment, it becomes a 4/4 creature with... This creature can't attack unless the defending player controls an island. So for 2 and a blue, when your opponent casts a spell, this becomes a 4/4 until the end of turn that cannot attack your opponent, unless they control an island. So yeah, overall, I wouldn't play this in any other format except maybe draft, but even then, it's a risk. I mean, blue's good and all, but I wouldn't play this card at all. But you can pay 2 and discard to draw a card, because cycling. So, yeah. You can always cycle it. And next up is Vigilant Sentry for 1 and double white. It is a 2/2 human nomad that, as long as you have 7 more cards in your graveyard, it gets +1/+1, and you can tap it to give a target attacking or blocking creature +3/+3 until the end of turn. So, yeah, I definitely wouldn't say this card's bad. But it's not great, but overall, this card is a pretty solid card. But, yeah, it's good, it's not great. And next up is Werebear, which for... Yeah, it's a bear. For 1 and a green is a 1/1 human bear druid that taps for a green, and if you have 7 more cards in your graveyard, it's a 4/4 instead of a 1/1. So, you have the potential to make this a 1 and a green, 4/4 that taps for a green. That's not bad at all. But anyways, next up is White Mane Lion, which for 1 and a white is a 2/2 cat with flash that when it enters the battlefield, return a creature you control to its owner's hand. That definitely isn't a bad card at all. And then next up is, well, yeah, I guess this could, white mainline could be a decent protection spell for your own board, but overall, I wouldn't really see this in most decks. And I guess I could see it in a draft deck here and there, but overall not great. But anyways, next up is Wild Dogs. For 1 green mana, it's a 2/1 dog that says at the beginning of your upkeep, if a player has more life than you, each other player... Wait, no. If a player has more life than each other player, the player with the most life gains control of Wild Dogs. So basically, if you have Wild Dogs out, whoever has the most life at the beginning of their upkeep is going to control Wild Dogs. And it's a 2/1. And you can pay 2 mana to discard it from your hand to draw a card. Because like 90% of the cards in the set have Cycle or Threshold. Or both. Anyways, so next up is Wild Growth. In my opinion, one of the better cards in this entire set, as far as commons go. But it's an incredible card, in my opinion. Ramp for Pauper, Commander, just about any format. It's like Utopia Sprawl, but less expensive, basically. For 1 green mana, it's an enchantment, aura, that enchants a land. Not any kind of specific land, by the way. And when that enchanted land is tapped for mana, it adds an additional green mana to your mana pool. So like, if you're playing a mono green deck, and you need ramp, on turn 1, 1 green mana, put this on your land. Next turn, you got 3 green mana. And then you just keep ramping, and you keep getting more creatures, and you keep doing more stuff, and you keep getting bigger things, and you keep doing more annoying stuff. Yeah, Wild Growth's a very good card, and you will definitely see me playing it here. Maybe soon, maybe not soon, in a green Pauper deck. Maybe not mono green, maybe multiple colors, who knows. But anyways, next up is Wormfane Drake, which for 2 and a blue is a 3/4 Nightmare Drake with flying that when it enters the battlefield, sack it unless you exile a creature you control other than this card. And then when this enters the battlefield, or when this leaves the battlefield, return the exiled card to the battlefield under its owner's control. Wait. Sack it unless you exile a creature you control. Yeah. So, yeah. It's a 3 mana, 3/4 flyer that makes you exile a thing on your board, but when it leaves, you get that thing back. Not horrible, but yeah, definitely not great. And now on to the last card of the commons list. Wretched Anurid. Not saying that right, guarantee it. 1 in the black, 3/3 zombie frog beast. Looks good so far. It's not going to be for much longer. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield, you lose a life. Not just on your board, on any board. Definitely want to play this in draft. Definitely want to play this in Pauper. Definitely want to play this in any format. Because that card is not very good at all. Not good at all. So anyways, that is it for the stream. Covered all the commons. It took basically 74 minutes to do it, but hey. All 106 commons from Dominaria Remastered have now been reviewed by me, and I'd say overall most of the commons in this set can definitely be pretty decent playables. And there are quite a few that I would play in just about any kind of deck. Oh, Barrel House, what time is the uncommon stream tomorrow? And the rare and mythic stream on Sunday? I'm not 100% sure what I'm going to do for the rare and mythic stream yet, but I know that the uncommon stream tomorrow is going to be set for 3 o'clock p.m. tomorrow. So, look forward to the uncommon stream for Dominaria Remastered tomorrow at 3 o'clock. So, with all of that aside, I'm your host, Teen Wolf. Please consider subscribing if you haven't already. It's completely free. And hey, I will see you all tomorrow at 3 o'clock for the uncommon stream for Dominaria Remastered. And we're going to see a lot of fun uncommons for Dominaria Remastered. So I'll see you then.